Welcome to it, sports fans. It is Monday here in Cape Town, South Africa, and it is episode 3 of From the Bleachers. What an awesome weekend of sport. It is absolutely incredible. My goodness, from the boxing, Usyk doing his thing against Bellew. If you didn't catch that, try and catch the replay. Usyk is going to be the next one. He's unbelievable. Absolutely unbelievable. Talking of moving up to heavyweight. And his target, according to his promoter, is, of course, Anthony Joshua, the king of the ring at the moment. And the heavyweight is back. So what an awesome weekend. And it was ended off by that on Saturday evening. And then, of course, the football, which we'll talk about. The rugby, which we'll talk about. But today, on From the Bleachers, we're going to talk about the Manchester derby. Of course, what a game that was. A real game of a city divided. But in the end, one half far better than the other. And then, of course, the rugby. England had their chance. They played the All Blacks. We'll talk about that, what unfolded there. So England, New Zealand in the rugby. And then we will talk about France versus South Africa, the Springboks, and exactly how that went down. Both nail-biters in the rugby. And that was awesome to watch. And then, of course, I'll end off with my predictions. On Friday, I made some predictions, and I will let you know how those panned out and exactly what happened there. So that's the intro for this week. Thanks for joining me. It is, of course, From the Bleachers with me, MKT. Welcome to it. Thank you so much for joining me. We're going to get straight into it. And I'm going to start with the game of the weekend in the English Premier League, which was the Manchester derby. If you haven't seen Andrew Lloyd Webber's masterpiece, Cats, I highly recommend it. It's my favorite play. I really, really love it. I weirdly know too many lyrics from that, but it is an awesome play, and it is a rather somber social commentary of people struggle to let go, people hang around too long, and we see it now in society, a longing for the past. So some of the young people stick to the past, things that happened in the past, they like it, they embrace old people, the aged. But we live in a time of efficiency now. New is better now. Not necessarily better is better, new is better now. We live in a time where old is not so great. Sometimes old struggles to adjust to the new. We live in a time where information is available across the world for the very first time in abundance. I can see what's happening in Sudan and live in Denmark. I can see what's happening in Saudi Arabia and I live in Argentina. That's for the very first time. It's different. Youngsters ask, why now? It's a different time. Adults have never had to deal with that. Children are no longer meant to be seen and not heard. Children will be heard and they'll let you know about that. Anyway, Andrew Lloyd Webber's play, Cats, all right? Absolute masterpiece if you haven't seen it. And the crescendo is a song which, unless you're some sort of robot alien, should bring you to tears every time if performed by the very best. But anyway, so there's a character called Grisabella, and she used to be the cat, She used to be absolutely it, the gorgeous cat in her day, and she was loved by everybody. She got all the attention. But now is a new day, as she famously sings in a song called Memories, which she shares right at the end, if you watch right at the end. So the song is performed at the beginning a little bit, just a little intro, a teaser, but right at the end it is the crescendo of the play and brings the play to a close. There's the full song Memories is played, and Grisabella is joined by Syllabub. And you see Syllabub just a little bit. Syllabub is one of the younger cats. If you haven't seen it, go and Google the song Memories from Cats. And why I bring up this masterpiece, and it's one of my favorites, is I think we saw a case, a reenactment of Cats, the play, but it played out in the Manchester derby on the weekend. Grisabella being Jose and Syllabub being Pep. What we watched on Saturday, I think, if you're old enough like me to have known something called the VHS. I just want to pause and give you time. VHS. To you youngsters, there was once something called a VHS tape if you wanted to watch a movie. What we watched on the weekend was a VHS tape versus Netflix. If you're old like me, you remember the VHS tape. Oh, you had to go rent it. You had to go to the shop. So you had to beg your parents to get in a car. There was no Uber back then. To get in a car, you got in the car, you walked around for like 45 minutes deciding what movie you wanted. You'd disagree with somebody for 15 minutes, and eventually you'd have to get 3 tapes. All right? Because nobody likes the same movies. You're at your friend's house now. Your dad gave you $100 pocket money. You're even willing to pay for the movie you want, but he wants something and his sister wants something else, and you're sleeping over at your friend's house, and now you're caught in it. But you have to go to the shops and walk around a video store, a VHS store, rent the movie, bring the tape home, and you'd get home, and 3 out of 10 times the tape hasn't been rewinded, and then you rewind it, and then the tape gets stuck in the machine. So now the tape's not working, and now you've got 2 other movies, and they're working, but it's his sister's favorite movie, and now the weekend's ruined, right? Because now the sister's crying, throwing a tantrum, and you and your mate now can't watch movies and chill and relax, because now everybody has to focus and calm the sister down. And it's like late on Saturday now. The sleepover's one day, right? That's a VHS tape. It's stuck in the machine. Now the mama has to take the machine on Sunday to be fixed, and now you guys can't go to the cricket the next day because VHS is inefficient. It is inefficient. It was clunky. The picture quality was poor. And my God, was it inconvenient. It was inconvenient. Like much of the past, it was inconvenient. You never got bang for your buck. The effort to get a VHS to work was never worth the reward. Manchester United are clunky. They are slow. They are unbearable to watch. And you don't get the result. And I can only measure Man United by Man United standards. Jose Mourinho this week said fatigue. We're fatigued. We played 3 games in 7 days. It's November. Jose Mourinho is the master of creating them against us mentality. And this week he spoke about fatigue. He was proud of the performance. They've played 3 games in 7 days and they've had to give big effort. Just to put that in context, Bournemouth, of course, Juventus, and now Manchester City. 3 games in 7 days. This weekend we watched VHS versus Netflix. Manchester United on VHS, Manchester City on Netflix. So Jose says fatigue. I say, okay, Jose, because I don't want to sound like I'm here to bash Jose Mourinho or Manchester United. That narrative can be boring and tired. I say, okay, let's go to the stats. Let's compare it to Manchester United in their heyday. Let's compare it to Manchester United in their heyday. Right? Because if you're a big club, and Manchester United fans and Manchester United people constantly tell me they're the biggest club in the world because they make the most money, and no, we're still an elite club. I say, okay, fine. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm biased because I do support a different football club and people will tell me I'm biased. So I'm going to compare Manchester United not to other clubs, to the standard that Man United set for themselves. And it's not like a million years ago. 1999 is not that long ago. I remember it very clearly. To many people, of course, in this society, it might seem like a lifetime ago. But 1999 is not that long ago. It's not that long ago. And Man United set their own standards. So it's not like I'm comparing them to another club. So Man United in 1999, I'm just going to give you a few bibs and bobs of their season. Of course, famous in that season for winning the treble. Only English club to have done that. The proper treble, not the Liverpool. It's not even a treble under Rafa. The proper treble. For those who don't know what the treble is, it's when you win the league, the FA Cup, and then the prize, the big ears, the Champions League in one season. Manchester United 1999. Remarkable team. Under the leadership of Roy Keane. Their Champions League group was Bayern Munich, Brøndby, and Barcelona. And it wasn't like a lukewarm Bayern Munich, because they'd go on to meet the very same Bayern Munich in the final, by the way. In that Bayern Munich team, Oliver Kahn, Marcus Babel, Lothar Matthäus, former World Player of the Year, unbelievable defensive midfielder. Makelele before Makelele. Sami Kufor, Vicente Lizarazu, and possibly Germany's greatest modern day player, Stefan Effenberg. Giovanni Elbe up front. Hassan Salihamidzic flying up and down on the right wing. If you don't know him, Dani Alves before Dani Alves. Khan, Babel, Mateus, Kufo, Lizarazu, Effenberg, Alba, Salihamidzic. Unbelievable Bayern Munich team. An absolute generational juggernaut of a team. Legendary squad, legendary for performances that lit up Europe for a good 5-6 years. In that very same group, Barcelona, not a lukewarm Barcelona. Michael Reisiger, Philippe Cocu, Luis Enrique, and 2 World Players of the Year in the very same team. Arguably Portugal's greatest ever player, Luis Figo. And then the irresistible left foot of Rivaldo. I don't think I need to say any more about him. So that's their group stage, Manchester United. I want to skip forward to the end of the season. I don't want to bore you with the in-between stuff. Nobody wants to hear that. The end of the season, in the last 2 months, the business end, what Sir Alex Ferguson famously anointed as squeaky bum time, when chips are on the table. In the last 2 months, in the last 43 days of Manchester United's season, April, May, when everything matters, Manchester United played 43 days, Manchester United played 14 games. But no matter how you dice it up, slice it up, that is 3 games. A game every 3 days for 43 days. You can dice it up however you want. The mathematics works itself out. It's a game every 3 days. For 2 months, basically, right? On a football calendar, 43 days works out at about 2 months. So I want you to try and listen to what I'm saying. In the business end, they've already gone through the Christmas period. And they are at the business end. In 43 days, Manchester United finished their season off. In 43 days, they played 14 football matches. At the absolute business end, it's now semi-final, final time. Arsenal were relentless that season. Remember back then, the FA Cup in the semi-finals, there were replays back then. So it wasn't like it's a FA Cup semi-finals, you go to extra time as Man United did with Arsenal, and then, okay, in the first one you go to penalties and it's over. Back then, the FA Cup would have a replay, and the replay was 3 days later. That's how it always worked. And remember, this one was famous for the most epic FA Cup goal I think that has ever been scored. But what makes it even better is that Manchester United's captain, Roy Keane, got sent off in the 75th minute of the second game, which also went to extra time. So Man United had 10 men for the last 15 minutes of regulation time and played 30 minutes with 10 men. And still went on to win, and Ryan Giggs scored the greatest goal the FA Cup has ever seen. So it's 35 minutes, 10 men, and they've gone on to win. Throw in another spanner in the works. With 5 games to go in the season, they drew to Liverpool 2-2, and I remember that game so clearly. And Arsenal won. So Fergie could not rest players going into the Champions League semi-finals. He had to go back to back to back to back, playing players in the league and the Champions League semi-finals. In that Champions League semi-final, he met a generational Juventus team. They were led by 2 guys you might know, Pavel Nedved and Zinedine Zidane. Dealt with that, Roy Keane suspended for the final of the Champions League. But that wasn't the end of it. Remember, the FA Cup final back then was played on the Sunday. The Champions League final wasn't played the next Saturday. It was played on the Tuesday. So on the 22nd, 22nd of May 1999, Man United won the FA Cup final. On the 25th, they were playing Bayern Munich in the final. 3 days turnaround. That's 3 days in between the games. Jose Mourinho complained about fatigue in November. Jose Mourinho is complaining about fatigue in November. He's proud of his players for a loss to Manchester City. And he's saying it's unbelievable because they were fatigued in November. Let's put it in context. Their group is Juventus, Valencia, Young Boys. Had you not drawn to Valencia at home, this Juventus game is no longer a must-win. Jose Mourinho is now in his third season. If he hasn't compiled the squad he wants now, after spending over £450 million in those 3 seasons, I don't know who he wants to blame. This is not, once again, Porto, where you could have excuses. This is not a Bournemouth. This is not Everton. This isn't Cardiff. This is Manchester United. There is no room for excuses. I'll say it again. 43 days. Manchester United in 1999 played 14 games. An FA Cup replay. A semi-final back-to-back-to-back squeezed in between a season where Arsenal were on their back. Man United ended up winning that title on the very last day. Man United went on to win the FA Cup final. And then 3 days later, went on to beat Bayern Munich in one of the most legendary Champions League finals you will ever see. 2 goals after regulation time. Terry Sheringham, take a bow. Ole Gunnar Solskjaer came on, changed the game. Jose Mourinho says there is fatigue. You cannot have excuses at Manchester United because pulling power for players is not a blockade. You can have any players in the world you want. Money is not a problem. Anything Man City and PSG put on the table, Man United can match to the very cent. Jose Mourinho is complaining of fatigue in November. And to that I say, I think in that moment, whether he knows it or not, Jose Mourinho has told us and all Manchester United fans that Manchester United is no longer an elite football club. That's what your very own manager is telling you, whether directly or indirectly. And if you're listening carefully, Jose Mourinho is saying we are no longer an elite football club. I never heard Sir Alex Ferguson complain of fatigue in the 27 years that he managed Manchester United. People might say, oh, that's too harsh. But I'm judging Man United because the fans tell me that they're an elite club. You set the standard in 99, going 3 in a row. The treble. So Man United fans are telling me Man United is an elite club. I'm saying your manager, not me. Your manager is telling you, if you're willing to listen to the cues that he's telling you, if he's complaining about fatigue in November, that says Man United are no longer on the top shelf and they have no intent to compete at that level. Because if you want to compete at that level, you play in 43 days, you'll be happy to play 14 games and make history. Winners don't look for excuses. There's winning in excuses. One gets you fired. Jose Mourinho has no excuse. He has spent over £450 million in 3 seasons. And he wants to tell me about fatigue in November. We're not even halfway through the season. And the big takeaway for me is Manchester United, and I don't know why they are delaying it. Jose Mourinho should have gone at the end of last season. But now here he is telling you we are no longer an elite club and the club only has themselves to blame. But now we're here. If Manchester United don't get the next appointment right, and I say this not in jest, I say this dead seriously. If they don't get the next appointment right, Manchester United are officially the next Arsenal and well on their way to becoming a Liverpool, where every single statistic or football argument will have to be referenced to their history. I'll say that again. If Manchester United don't get the next managerial appointment right, they are well on their way to becoming the next Arsenal. And then following that, if they get the next appointment wrong, they will be the next Liverpool, because I do not see Man City relenting. Tottenham are in town with a new stadium and a new ambitious project. And then Chelsea are going nowhere. Whether that's under Roman Abramovich or a new owner who will pay £2 or £3 billion for the club, I imagine the only people that can afford that is another mega bucks oligarch from Russia or Saudi Arabian money. Somebody from the Arabic region will be happy to pay £3 billion for Chelsea, and believe you me, they will continue to contend at the top end. Your manager, Manchester United fans, is telling you, I'm not saying it, Jose Mourinho is complaining about fatigue in November. His team went and drew to Valencia at home. His team turned the Juventus game into a must-win finals type of game. You cannot blame anybody else. But Manchester United's own manager has declared, and I think it is very clear for everybody to see, and I'll say it one more time, Manchester United are the VHS tape. And we saw in defeat that Manchester City are now Netflix. Jose Mourinho is an analog manager in a digital time. And Manchester is blue. What a weekend, what a result that was. Pep Guardiola. Let me switch over to this. So I watched a bit of rugby on the weekend as well. I had such a great weekend. I have the pleasure of living in an awesome, awesome city. Real great outdoor city. It is summertime where I am. Temperatures somewhere between 90 Fahrenheit and 100 Fahrenheit, which is like 30 degrees and upwards. It's been awesome. So I really had a great weekend this weekend. I had a few British mates in town, gave me a call for the rugby. And they thought they were going to win this weekend. And England were playing the All Blacks, and a big hoo-ha. Of course, All Blacks are not what they used to be. I think this is the worst All Black team I've seen in 7 years. It's the worst All Black team I've seen in 7 years. And not so much the player ability. There's just chinks in their armor we haven't seen before. And it's a confidence issue. Could be fatigue. Steve Hansen's been there now. He's going for a second cycle. So maybe his voice is being tuned out. This is what happens with greatness. Great players need to be constantly stimulated. Maybe Steve Hansen's voice is it's been on repeat maybe a little long. Remember, Steve Hansen was the assistant to the regime before. Maybe the players have just had enough of hearing the same old Hansen. It could very well be the cycle will end in 2019 in Japan. I believe that it'll be a three-peat and New Zealand will recover to win. But let's talk about the game on Saturday. I've always said this. I've always said, I don't care how good you are. And I've seen it throughout my life. No matter where you work, I always say to people, chase great leadership. Don't worry about money. Chase great leadership. There's money everywhere. Chase great leadership. Don't chase money. Because money is not rare. If you're in the business world, if you're in the working world, money is everywhere. Leadership is rare. There's only one Steve Jobs. There's only one Bill Gates. There's only one Jack Ma. There's only one Sir Alex Ferguson. Only one. You only get one of those. There's only one Graham Henry. There's only one Nelson Mandela. There aren't like 600,000 of those throughout history. There's only one of those. There's only one Oliver Tambo. Right? But money is everywhere. There's only one Warren Buffett. Everyone else gets to invest. Everyone gets the same information. Everyone's had the same information from way back. Berkshire Hathaway. There's only one. Chase great leadership. My point is this. System will always trump talent. System will always trump talent and resources. Always. Chase great leadership. Where there's great leadership, there's great systems. And what systems allow you to do is that when the individuals that work in a place are not at 100%, is that it only allows the floor to be so low, you know? Like if there's no system, it's like a roller coaster ride. The floor can be at like 5%. But the All Blacks, because the system is so tight, the floor really that an All Black team will ever be is at 80%. No matter who you are, no matter how bad the confidence is. Even if you're running on empty. And we saw that in broad daylight on Saturday. Because England have more money, more players, more registered players, a really more established league. The RFU has bottomless pits of money. You can see everybody goes and plays in England. But England can't get the rugby right. Why? England has more players, more coaches, more money, better resources, better stadiums, better training centres. The Olympic training centre is just unbelievable. It's the next level. It's in London. They have more of everything. But the RFU is amateur. The All Blacks were without Naholo, Kane, Milner-Skudder, Barrett Jr. Geordie Barrett he's being rotated and rested. So I'll repeat again. No Naholo, no Kane, who had that tragic injury. Nehe Milner-Skudder. No Barrett. Geordie Barrett, that is. The All Blacks, I'll repeat, they are the worst I have seen them in 7 years. I'll talk about the chinks in their armour now. But the system within the All Black culture, from top to bottom, the very worst a team will ever be, which is why the All Blacks very rarely have been blown out. I mean, really blown out in the last 8 years. The All Blacks haven't had like a 45-20 loss in forever. Because the system won't allow it. No matter who you are, you come into the All Black setup, everybody knows what is happening all the time. You look at support runners, nobody does it like the All Blacks. It was raining, but left and right shoulder tight. Nobody does the support running and timing like the All Blacks do. And when conditions change, people need to know where to be because there are going to be natural errors. And the All Blacks adjusted to a game that broke down. It really was an ugly game. And England crumbled. Why did England crumble? Because they stopped believing in the system. They stopped believing in the system. And we saw it. Farrell kicked the ball out off the kickoff because they got too excited and he wanted to go for the short kickoff. That isn't a mistake. At that level, what it tells me is you don't believe in the system. Kick the ball long, go and chase, and trust that your defense will get the ball back for you. That's what the All Blacks do. You don't go for the short kickoff and try and just get it over the 10 and compete. You kick it to the All Blacks and you say, our defense will get this ball back. But no, Farrell tried to be clever and he went away from the system and he said, no, you know what? I'm an individual. Let me try and make a big play in the crunch time in the worst conditions in the world. The wind is swirling. It is wet. I'm going to go for the short kickoff. And what happened? Ball sailed out, All Black ball, and the rest is history. And then another very clear moment. And this was my favorite moment in sport this weekend, where we saw that system triumphs players and resources. Courtney Lawes going offside. You know, at the top level of anything, especially sport, it is a game of absolute centimeters. Centimeters. It's not meters you win by. You don't win by 10, 15 meters in sport, in sprinting. At the cutting edge, inches, centimeters. Courtney Lawes was 10 centimeters offside. Why? Because he didn't believe in the system. He thought, as an individual, let me behave outside the system. Let me go get the ball back first. Let me charge it down. We'll score the try and I'll be the hero. System triumphs individuals and resources all the time. Eddie Jones, the hammer should drop on his shoulders. He hasn't got the culture right. You get the culture right. You get the system in place. Courtney Lawes doesn't go offside. And Owen Farrell doesn't try and be a hero by trying to kick a short kickoff. Beauden Barrett is being exposed. He's not as good as advertised. He can't kick when it's tough. He kicked all right this weekend, but he lost the game against the British Lions. He lost them the series there. Can't kick when it's tight. They lost to the Springboks earlier this year. Beauden Barrett can't defend. Everybody can see now, attack Beauden Barrett inside shoulder. England went for it and nearly got him. But you know what got the All Blacks over the line? Not their ability, because all of them played terribly. They're missing, once again, I'll name it, Naholo, who gets into any team at right wing. Sam Cane, for me, the best open sider in world rugby. I don't care what anybody says. Cane, you never see him. It means he's doing his job at 7. Nehe Milner-Skudder, well, between Damian McKenzie and him, they are the most X-factor players. in World Rugby, backline players in World Rugby. And then Barrett Jr., who can play 15, 14, and apparently fly half himself. Those are the players they're missing. But because the All Blacks are in a system where they are the worst the All Blacks have been in 7 years, they managed to squeak through a tight game because they said system over individuals. If you're out there in life, chase the system, don't chase money. Because England have more money than the All Blacks, but they don't have the system. The All Blacks are run like a Formula One team. Everybody knows what their role is, and everybody knows that the goal is for the All Blacks to be the best. And to be the best, you buy into what we are doing. Not what you want to do, Owen Farrell, and kick a short kickoff. Not what you want to do, Courtney Laws, and sneak offside and get the charge down and cost your team the game. But what does the team need? Do you believe that the team can defend in those tight moments, Courtney Laws? Owen Farrell, do you think your team can get the turnover from a long regulation kickoff in tricky conditions? What we saw on Saturday is a team, the All Blacks, with no confidence, and they look quite tired to me. But the system triumphed. The RFU's massive resources, Twickenham atmosphere, and the most registered professional rugby players in the world. England went away from the system, and once again, the system beat the individuals on Saturday. So let's go to the other game. Absolute nail-biter as well. Absolute nail-biter. The All Blacks played France. I've had a few interesting chats with people about that. People in the know within the box setup that disagree vehemently with me on many subjects regarding the All Blacks. Excuse me, the Springboks. I spoke to somebody who works within the Springbok camp, and I've been telling him since Rassie Erasmus became, in fact, since Alistair Coetzee became coach. But Rassie now is coach. So we deal with now. There is no yesterday in sport. There is no tomorrow. There is only now. The Springboks on Saturday proved once again to me that of the major nations, we are the most one-dimensional of all. The Springboks are one-dimensional. If they can't bully you, we have no second plan. And that hasn't changed since 1998, 1999, maybe a little bit post-Mallet. We had a bit of fun with Mallet as our coach. Since about 99, we've had exactly the same game plan since 1999. I don't really want to get into the complexity of the 1-3-3-1 and the 2-4-2 and pods and things like that. I can get into that in another episode. That's probably second level data and analysis. I just want to get into what we can all see, the layman can see. One-off runners. One-off runners in 2018 rugby. We still have one-off runners, something called coming around the corner. We still come around the corner in 2018 rugby. We have regressed to 1998 tactics, 1999 tactics. The Bok game has not evolved past 1999. Nick Mallet tried. He had it for a little bit, for 16 games in a row. And then, well, Bok rugby went back to its norm. Even Jake White, I don't care what you say, we were the most boring rugby team ever. We won, and some will argue that's enough. And as I was just telling you, the Springbok system, which I will talk about on another podcast, is not strong enough. We rely on individual talent. And when the Springboks don't have individual talent, my goodness, the floor is low. So let's get through some pointers that I picked up on the weekend. Handré Pollard is not an international 10, first and foremost. Because your fly half is meant to be the man who commands and directs the game. The Springbok pack, because of the size of South African people, is never going to get bullied. So no matter where you are, who you play, I don't care if you play the All Blacks, England or Ireland, you'll always have front foot ball. Always. So your 10 just needs to be mediocre at game management. He doesn't need to be Daniel Carter. He doesn't. He really doesn't need to be Daniel Carter. You don't need a Johnny Wilkinson behind the Springbok pack, because all of the ball is always front foot. Even though the scrum half has a terrible pass, Faf du Plessis, but the fly half needs to direct all operations at all times. Steve Larkham, Michael Lynagh, Andrew Mertens, Daniel Carter. When they talk about a classic 10, what a fly half should do is for 80 minutes, he is the CEO of the team. And as he goes, the team will go. He dictates tempo, he dictates depth, he dictates where we're going to play, left, right, short, inside, outside. What's our pace? Are we playing territorial? What are they doing? Because it's chess moves. Rugby is such a beautiful game because it is so intricate. It is real chess moves. And your fly half needs to be able to have a GPS of the game. Pollard doesn't have it. He's shown over and over and over. And you can say what you want about Elton Jantjies, but he is the best genuine 10 we have got. Elton varies the tempo. He'll go flat, deep. He'll come short towards the scrum half. He'll play wide. And all that Elton Jantjies is trying to do, which is why he's such actually a great finisher, is dictate the tempo. That's what the 10 should do, because the tempo is everything in rugby. And nobody gets to decide it like the number 10, which is why he needs to be able to distribute both ways equally. Because how you control tempo is distribution. Whether you're distributing out to the back line, to the forwards, or you're looking to hit your pods, the 10 must decide. And that's not old, that's not new, that's how rugby will always be, because the number 10 is always the first receiver. Or ideally, he receives the ball the most. So number 10's role, which is why people like Barrett are an anomaly, he doesn't have to be your best athlete. He doesn't have to be that. He needs to be the smartest rugby player on the field. Larkham, Lynagh, Mertens, Tony Brown, Johnny Wilkinson. This is what I'm talking about. 10 goes. The team will go as the 10 goes. Pollard's not it. Centre pairing, horrendous. Dialende can't distribute. He belongs in the 90s. Jesse Creel, well, I can't say on here because this is the family podcast. I'd like young kids to be able to listen to this. I can't tell you what I think of him as a rugby player. He belongs in like the 60s. Even more concerning, the loose trio of Siya Kolisi, Dwayne Vermeulen, lacks dynamism. In modern day rugby, your flanks cannot lack dynamism. Ardie Savea, Sam Cane, Kieran Reid. This is what you're up against. And we've got Dwayne Vermeulen and Siya Kolisi. They can't keep up with Warren Whiteley. Whiteley made 2 breaks. Nobody was there on either shoulder because neither of them are quick enough for international rugby. The Springboks are trapped because you've picked Kolisi as the captain now and he has to play. And now the trap is they think Pieter-Steph du Toit is the next guy. And now you've got to play Siya at open side. But Siya Kolisi is not an open side flank. He lacks the dynamism. Marks can't scrum. He can't throw in the line out. And you want to tell me he's an international hooker? At a stage, the Springbok pack had in it Malcolm Marx, Dwayne Vermeulen, Francois Lowe, and Pieter-Steph du Toit. That's like the guys all coming off the bench. That happened at a stage. Malcolm Marx, I'm going to talk about it in the future, is not your answer at 2. Stop telling me about his ball carrying. If Malcolm Marx is there as a ball carrier, don't worry about it. I've got Dwayne Vermeulen, Sia Kolisi, Peter Steph Totoy, and Eben Etzebeth. Don't worry about the ball carrying. Start doing some fundamentals, dude. Learn to throw the ball to your locks. Start doing some fundamentals, dude. I don't need a ball carrier. I've got Peter Steph Totoy. I've got Dwayne Vermeulen. I've got Sia Kolisi. I've got Warren Whiteley. I've got ball carriers. If people justify the hooker by saying his ball carrying is amazing, that's a concern. Rassie Erasmus, sadly, was an incredible rugby player, and it makes no sense to me because he is one of the most dynamic number sixes the game has ever seen. And I mean all time. Rassie Erasmus is like a Hall of Fame all-time rugby player. If you're young and you didn't get to see Rassie play, he was unbelievable. He was what Richie McCaw was before Richie McCaw. Rassie was slightly undersized as a rugby player, but my goodness was he a terrier. He was 10 years ahead of the game. People thought Bob Skinstad could play. Bob Skinstad didn't hit a ruck in his lifetime. Rassie Erasmus was everywhere. To the young people out there, if I could give you a sort of look into what type of player Rassie Erasmus was, I would say a combination of Richie McCaw, and for those who do love a Dwayne Vermeulen, somebody like Dwayne Vermeulen. He was an explosive ball carrier who had ball skills, and at the breakdown, once he was over it, there was no getting Rassie Erasmus off the ball. And a smart, a truly cerebral number 6. But Rassie as a coach is stuck in the 90s. As a player, he was 10, 15 years ahead of his time. As a coach, everything I see now, I saw under Kitch Christie in 95, I saw under Machraf in the late 90s, and I saw under Rudolf Strauly. It is embarrassing, and there is a reason why we are 20 years behind as the Springboks. It is disappointing because we've got unbelievable talent. But once again, our administration and systems are so far behind, we are an amateur organization. The loose trio was Peter Steph Totoy, Francois Lowe, and Dwayne Vermeulen at the end. In 2018, people. The one guy is a lock, and the other two could in reality play lock because they are so slow. Francois Lowe and Dwayne Vermeulen are so slow. It is painful. And the Springboks want to tell me we're contenders for the World Cup? Come on, guys. Malcolm Marx is not an international hooker. Whether you like it or not, take it to the bank. Thank goodness Mbonambi was on at the end, because I think Mbonambi is the most fundamentally sound, and I think he's better than Aka van der Merwe just in what a hooker should do. I don't care about ball carrying. That should be an extra. Dude, can you throw a 4 and a 6 ball? Do you know what a defensive lineout is? Do you know when you throw a lob ball on defense? Do you know what a lob ball is for? When you throw the ball, where does the lock catch the ball? Is the ball dipping into his hands, or is it at the top of its arc? Watch Mbonambi's throws. Every throw that Mbonambi throws, the lock catches the ball at the top of the arc. The ball is never dipping into the lock's hands. And what does that mean? It means that even if you want to compete, right, you're going to have to get your competition 100% right with Mbonambi, because he's hitting the ball, right, on a man being lifted. He's hitting it with zip, and he's hitting it into a tight window right at the top of the arc. So if you're trying to compete, no matter how aggressively, you're going to have to get your guys up super quickly. And thank goodness Mbonambi was on in the crunch time. And you saw why a hooker has to be fundamentally sound. Otherwise, unlike against England, where Marx overthrew early in the game, when it could have been time to seal the game 5 meters out, Mbonambi hit his 6 jumper, and the rest is delirium. France were 5-19 before this. They're 5-20. They've won 5-20, this French team. The Springboks struggled. The Springboks, in my eyes, after that performance, yes, they got the win. But my goodness, are they poor. But my goodness, are they poor. It is a team stuck in the 90s. So on Friday, I made some predictions. And it's always fun to see, how did those go? And the thing about me is I don't listen to the public. I don't listen to the biased media. I like to do the data analysis. All right? So let's get into it. How did my predictions go? Let's start with the rugby. I went with the All Blacks. So I'll go with the All Blacks game first. All Blacks versus England. Absolute humdinger game. England did what they had to. They made it ugly. It's the only way you're going to beat the All Blacks. And I think especially the weather helped England. They could then turn it into that British Bulldog type of game. And that young Underhill kid was unbelievable at open side for them. His tackle count work rate. And he has signs that he could be another Neil Back. Slightly bigger than Neil Back, but bullish. And his timing and everything is outstanding. Made it ugly. Ardie Savea, I think, has shown that he's not a genuine open side flanker. I think problem for Savea, Ardie Savea that is that he's really a number 8. He's too tall to play the open side position, and he doesn't have the body position or that sort of squat strength to when he competes at the breakdown. He can't do it for the All Blacks. And I think that is a chink in the armor, and England, I think, saw that. They kept it tight and they tried to bully the All Blacks. And it nearly worked. So I said 30-14 to the All Blacks. I thought the All Blacks would adjust. I thought Barrett, who I don't think is actually as good as advertised, I'll talk about that in the future. I thought he might come through and try and control the game, but he's not a game manager. If his talent can't come through, the system had to save him again. All Blacks lost Sonny Bill Williams. I thought, here comes trouble, but I forget that they have Crotty on the bench. Ye old Mr. Reliable came on, kept it tight. He had some great line breaks and lacked support runners. Goodhue, I thought, was exposed, inexperience, and England exploited that. I said 30-14 to the All Blacks. It ended up being 16-15. Got the result right. I would have lost you on the spread. France Springboks. Turned into a humdinger of a game. The French, as they always try and do, tried to play up to a level above. My prediction, I said 25-14. The Springboks are so successful in France, and Paris always won the World Cup in 2007, so it's a happy hunting ground for the Boks. But they really, really made a meal of it. I'll repeat, France had 5 in 19. They had won 5 in 19. France have now won 5 in 20. But on the weekend, the Springboks snuck it in Bonambi. Great throw to 6. Wrapped around, molded over. The rest is delirium. The Springboks won 29-16. I said 25-14. I would have lost the spread for you, but I got the result right. And in the Manchester derby, in reality, a walkover. A shambles, an embarrassment for Manchester United fans and faithful and the club. I think Man United got absolutely embarrassed. 68% possession that City had. I'll repeat that, 68% possession. Man United had 1 shot in the whole game on target. I predicted 4-1. It was 3-1. I think it went according to plan. Man City are on a different planet to Man United at the moment. And as I've said throughout the podcast, it was a VHS tape versus Netflix. An absolute shambles for Man United. So I predicted 4-1. And it was 3-1. So I was on the money this week. Would love to hear other people's predictions, what they think of my predictions and how it went. I went 30-14 in the England game. I said the All Blacks would win 30-14. They ended up winning 16-15. So I got the spread wrong, but the result right. I only predicted results. France versus Springboks, I said 25-14. It ended up being 29-26 to the Springboks. And in the Manchester derby, I said 4-1. Ended up being 3-1. Pep Guardiola. Manchester is blue. That is from the Bleachers for this week. If you did listen, thank you so much. Remember, if you are listening through YouTube, subscribe and please share if you like this. More content, better content will be coming out in the future, of course. This has been an awesome episode 3. Really, really loved it. Would love to hear all feedback. Let me know. Hit me up on my email. The email's in the link. You can subscribe to all of our pages. It is in the description below. So hit subscribe on our YouTube page, and let us know what you think of From the Bleachers and the content we have brought your way for this Monday morning. It has been an absolute pleasure to be with you. Have an awesome day. I will be with you again tomorrow for Tuesday and more topics. We'll get into more Premier League action. We'll talk a little bit about the Gunners tomorrow and exactly what's happening there with Unai Emery and the revolution post-Wenger. So once again, hit subscribe and share. If you like this, hit me up. Let us know what you think of From the Bleachers. And look out for more awesome content to come as we go along. For this Monday, though, I say good day to you. Have a good one. Thanks for joining me.